They called her street trash. They stepped over her bare feet like she was dirt. They laughed as she walked into the tallest building in the city. Silence. But what they didn't know was that the little girl they mocked was walking toward the one man whose entire past was built on a lie. A child sobbing beside a dying woman, a billionaire holding a DNA envelope with shaking hands, headlines screaming with scandal, and a woman trying to hide a secret she has carried for years. What happens when the child the world throws away turns out to be the heir to everything? Subscribe to Black Journal Stories, where hidden truths become the stories we tell. Amina was only 7 years old when she walked into Zenith Tower. Her feet were dusty, her clothes were worn, but her small hands held a crayon drawing pressed tightly against her chest. People in the lobby stared at her with confusion and disgust. Some whispered to each other, some pointed, some shook their heads the moment she stepped through the glass doors. A guard frowned and said, "Little girl, you cannot be here." Another guard snorted. A third muttered, "Street trash always trying to beg." But Amina did not beg. She stood still, even though her body shook. Her voice was small but steady as she said, "I need to work. My mommy is dying." The guards laughed. One waved her away as if she were nothing. Another told her to get out before she caused trouble. But Amina did not move. She did not cry. She simply whispered, "I'm not here for pity. I came to help." Across the lobby, Maya, the chief of staff, stopped walking. Something in Amina's voice pulled her attention. She watched the little girl's face, and her heart tightened, because Maya recognized that look, the heavy, quiet look of a child who had learned about pain too early, a look Maya remembered from her own childhood. Without thinking, Maya stepped forward. Why did Maya feel such a deep pull toward a child she had never seen before? Maya guided Amina through the long hallway toward the top floor. Amina held her crayon drawing close, as if it was the only thing keeping her brave. Her small footsteps were quiet, careful, afraid. They reached the office of Darius Cole, the richest black man in the city. People said he had everything: money, power, respect. But Darius also had something else, a heart locked behind years of pain. He looked up when Maya walked in. His face was cold. His voice was firm. "Why is there a child in my office?" Amina did not answer right away. She slowly lifted her drawing toward him with both hands. Darius hesitated. Something in the colors, the shapes, the uneven lines. Something struck him deep inside. A memory, a voice from the past, a little girl he never got to meet, a love he lost without warning. His jaw tightened. Maya spoke quietly. "She came here alone. She says her mother is dying." Darius looked at Amina again, but now the coldness in his eyes softened just a little. Amina took a shaky breath. "My mommy is sick. They want to send her away. I want to work so I can help her." For a moment, Darius felt the world slow down. This little girl, her courage, her drawing, her quiet strength. It felt familiar in a way he did not understand, or maybe did not want to understand. He stood up. "Come," he said. "Show me where your mother is." Maya's eyes widened with surprise. Even she knew this was not normal for him. What memory did Amina's drawing awaken in this powerful man? And why was he suddenly afraid of what it could mean? The hospital was loud when they arrived. Nurses rushed from room to room. People cried in the hallways. Machines beeped without rhythm. Amina ran ahead and reached a small, crowded ward. There, on a thin mattress with fading sheets, lay her mother, Zuri. Her breathing was weak. Her skin looked pale. A nurse stepped forward and said sharply, "Are you the family? This patient must be discharged. No payment has been made." Amina grabbed Darius's arm with both hands. Her voice trembled. "Please, don't let them take her away, please." For a moment, Darius stood still. Something inside him broke open. Something he had shut down long ago. He turned to the nurse. "Put all her bills under my name, every single one." The nurse froze. Other nurses stared. This kind of kindness did not happen in this place. Within minutes, Zuri was moved to a private room. When she opened her eyes and saw Darius standing there, her whole body tensed. A flash of fear rushed across her face, sharp, familiar, shaken. She whispered, No, this can't be happening." Darius frowned. He had never seen her before, but she looked at him like she knew him, like his presence was a danger she had feared for years. Amina sat on the bed beside her mother, holding her hand tightly. Zuri looked at Darius again, and her voice cracked. "Why you? Why now?" Darius did not answer. Not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't understand it himself. Why did this woman react to him with such shock and fear, as if he was the one truth she had been running from? The next morning, Darius arrived at Zenith Tower with Amina by his side. Her small hand held the edge of his coat. She looked cleaner now, but the fear in her eyes was still there. The moment they stepped inside, the office fell silent. People stared, some in shock, some in irritation, some with open disgust. A woman whispered, "Why is she here?" A man muttered, "What is he thinking?" Someone else said, "A street girl doesn't belong in a place like this." Amina lowered her head. She felt the sharp weight of every stare. Darius walked into the center of the floor and said, "This is Amina. She will be assisting me for now." The room erupted with whispers. Cynthia, one of the top executives, stepped forward. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were cold. "Sir, why is this child in our company? This is highly unprofessional." Darius turned toward her. His voice was firm, almost dangerous. "You will show her respect. All of you will. If that is a problem for anyone, you may leave." Everyone froze. Cynthia's face tightened with humiliation. Her pride cracked. She forced a smile, but her eyes carried something darker: jealousy, threat, rising anger. Inside her mind, a promise began to form. She would find out who this little girl really was, and she would make sure Amina never took what Cynthia believed was hers. Amina, unaware of the storm around her, simply stood quietly at Darius's side. Why was Darius so protective of a child he barely knew? And how far would Cynthia go now that she felt challenged? Cynthia could not stop thinking about the scene from that morning. Darius defending a little girl? Darius raising his voice for anyone? It made no sense to her. For years she tried to earn his attention. She worked late. She followed every rule. She stayed loyal. And still, he never looked at her the way she wanted. But this child, this barefoot stranger, had broken every rule and somehow walked straight into his world. Cynthia's anger grew sharper with every hour. She picked up her phone. Her voice was low and cold as she said, "I need information. Everything you can find about a child named Amina. I don't care how far back you have to go." Her investigators moved quickly. Within a day, they returned with the truth. Amina was not Zuri's biological daughter. There was no birth record for her, no father's name, no mother's name, nothing. The only trace of her past was a police report from 7 years earlier. A newborn found abandoned in a bus station bathroom, wrapped in a faded pink blanket, left with a small handwritten note. Cynthia read the report 3 times. Her smile widened with every word. "So the little street girl really has no family," she whispered. "No blood, no name, nothing." She thought she had found the perfect weapon. She believed this truth would destroy Amina. She believed it would make Darius push the child away. She believed she finally had control again. But what she didn't know was this: the note she had just uncovered, the one she thought would ruin everything, was actually the key to the secret Darius feared the most. What exactly was written in that note, and who wrote it? The next morning, Zenith Tower woke up to chaos. Phones rang nonstop. People whispered in corners. Screens all around the office flashed with the same breaking headline, "Billionaire Darius Cole hires street orphan. Is he being tricked? Who is this girl inside Zenith Tower? Scam or sympathy? The truth behind the CEO's stray child." Online comments were worse. People called Amina every ugly name they could find. Street trash. Scammer child. Gold digger in training. She's just pretending. She wants money. Amina sat quietly in a small room. She didn't understand the words, but she saw the anger. She felt the hatred. And her tiny heart shook with fear. Darius walked into the office with fire in his eyes. He stormed straight into Cynthia's office. "Did you do this?" he demanded. Cynthia didn't look afraid. She stood tall, arms crossed, as if she had been waiting for him. "I exposed the truth," she said. "The world deserves to know who she is." "You humiliated a child," Darius said. "A child who has done nothing wrong." Cynthia shrugged. "She fooled you, Darius. She fooled all of us. She's nobody." Darius stared at her, breathing hard. Something inside him cracked open. Something he had tried to hold back. He said quietly, almost painfully, "She might be everything." Cynthia's face froze. "What do you mean?" she asked. Darius turned away. His voice was low, strained, filled with a fear he didn't want to name. "She reminds me of someone," he said. "Someone I lost, someone I've searched for, and I'm starting to think she might be mine." For a moment, Cynthia forgot to breathe. But in Darius's heart, one truth grew louder. He was afraid. Afraid of hope. Afraid of the past. Afraid of what he might discover. What made him believe Amina could be his child? And what truth was he terrified to face? Darius could not sleep that night. The headlines, Amina's tears, Zuri's fear. Everything felt tangled together, pulling him toward a truth he was scared to touch. By evening, he drove to Zuri's small home. The house was quiet. The lights were low. Amina sat beside her mother, gently wiping her forehead. Zuri's eyes opened when she heard the door. She froze when she saw Darius standing there. He stepped inside slowly. "I need to know the truth," he said. His voice was calm, but his heart was fighting inside his chest. Zuri looked down at her hands. She took a long breath, as if preparing for pain. "Amina. She is not my daughter by blood," she said softly. "I found her. Or maybe she found me." Darius stayed silent, waiting. Zuri continued. "It was 7 years ago, a cold night. I was cleaning at the bus station. I heard a baby crying in the bathroom." Her voice shook. She was alone, wrapped in a pink blanket. Her face was red from crying, and next to her was this. Zuri reached into a drawer with trembling hands and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She held it tightly for a moment, then gave it to Darius. When he opened it, his breath caught in his throat. The handwriting on the note, the slanted letters, the tiny hearts in the corners. He knew that handwriting. It belonged to Alana, the woman he loved, the woman who left him, the woman who was pregnant with his child when she disappeared. Darius staggered back. His voice broke. "No, it can't be. It can't." Zuri wiped her eyes. "I wanted to tell you," she said, "but I was afraid. Afraid you would take her. Afraid you would think I stole her. I didn't. I couldn't leave her there." Darius held the note in both hands. His whole body trembled with memories he tried to bury. The laughter he once shared with Alana, the promises they made, the night she vanished without a word. He whispered, "Is it possible? After all these years?" His voice cracked again. "I need a DNA test." Zuri nodded, tears falling down her cheeks. "I will not stop you," she said. "But please, whatever the result is, don't break her heart." Darius looked at the note again. The last thing Alana ever wrote. Was Amina truly the child he lost? And what would the test reveal? The truth he longed for? or the truth he feared most. 2 days passed slowly. The world outside was loud with gossip and hate, but inside Darius's home, everything felt painfully quiet. Amina stayed close to Maya, asking small questions. Did I cause trouble? Did I make Mr. Darius sad? Will my mommy be okay? Maya answered gently, but her eyes showed worry. She knew the truth was coming, and she knew it could break or save them all. Finally, the envelope arrived, a simple white envelope, but it felt heavy enough to decide a whole life. Darius asked Maya to bring Amina into his office. He didn't sit behind his desk this time. He sat in front of it on a single chair, the envelope in his hands. Amina walked in slowly. She held her small fingers together, afraid to speak. Darius looked at her. The shape of her eyes, the curve of her smile, the familiar strength in her quiet way. He already felt the truth, but he needed to see it printed in ink. His hands shook as he opened the envelope. He unfolded the paper, and the room went still. His breath broke. His eyes filled with tears before he could blink them away. Amina stepped closer. Did I make you angry?" she whispered. Darius stood up. He couldn't speak at first. His throat closed and the paper slipped from his hands. Then he fell to his knees in front of her. "No, Amina," he said, his voice shaking. "You did nothing wrong." He pulled her into his arms. "You're my daughter," he whispered. "My baby. You're mine." Amina froze. Her body went still. She pulled back slightly, her eyes wide. I have a daddy," she said in a small voice. "Yes," Darius breathed. "You have me. Forever." Amina began to cry. Soft, broken sobs that came from years of fear and loneliness. She buried her face in his chest, and Darius held her like he was holding a missing piece of his soul. But outside his office, people were listening. People were whispering. People were waiting. Because a new question now hung in the air. Now that the child the world called trash had been revealed as the true heir, how would the world react? The very next morning, Darius made a decision, a bold one, a public one. He called for a full company meeting. Every floor, every worker, every executive. No one knew why. Rumors filled the hallways like smoke. Some said he was stepping down. Some said he was losing his mind. Some said the street girl had ruined him. But while the building buzzed with fear and gossip, Darius stood behind the stage curtain, holding Amina's tiny hand. She looked up at him and whispered, "Do I have to talk?" He knelt beside her. "No, sweetheart," he said softly. "You only need to stand with me. That is enough." When the doors opened, hundreds of eyes turned their way. The room went silent. Amina's small fingers squeezed Darius's hand. He squeezed back, steady and sure. Darius stepped forward. His voice was firm, loud enough to reach every corner. "This child," he said, "is my daughter." Whispers exploded across the room. Shock, confusion, disbelief. But Darius did not stop. "She is my blood, my family, my responsibility, and I will protect her with everything I am." People lowered their eyes. Others shifted uncomfortably. Some felt guilt rise in their chests. Cynthia stood in the back, frozen, pale, trembling. All her schemes, all her jealousy, all her anger, all of it collapsed in one moment. Slowly, Cynthia stepped forward. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "Sir, I am sorry. I was wrong. I was jealous. I hurt an innocent child." Amina looked at her with big, soft eyes. She didn't understand adults. She only understood kindness. "My mommy says forgiveness makes your heart lighter," Amina said quietly. Cynthia's lips trembled. She nodded, tears filling her eyes for the first time in years. After the meeting, Darius made more changes. He bought Zuri a new home, a safe one, clean and warm. He gave her a job leading a new program for families in need. He made sure she knew she was not losing Amina. He was adding himself, not replacing her. Zuri cried when he handed her the keys. "Thank you," she whispered, "for saving her, for saving us both." Amina finally slept in a soft bed with clean sheets, a nightlight, and no fear of being taken away. For the first time since she was born, she felt safe, and for the first time in years, Darius felt whole. But a question remained, one that none of them had spoken aloud yet, now that the truth was out. What new challenges would this unexpected family face in a world that never welcomed them? Life began to change slowly after the truth came out. Amina started waking up to warm breakfasts instead of empty plates. She had clean clothes, soft blankets, and shoes that actually fit her feet. Every day she looked a little less afraid. Every day she smiled a little more. Zuri, too, felt something she hadn't felt in years. Rest. No more running. No more fear of losing Amina. No more nights wondering if tomorrow would be worse. She moved into the new home Darius gave her, a place with working lights, clean water, and doors that locked safely. She found herself breathing easier, standing straighter, living again. And Darius, he changed the most. He had spent years building walls around his heart, walls made of loss, guilt, and old wounds. But Amina broke through them with her tiny hands and quiet courage. He took her to school. He helped her with homework. He read to her at night, even though his voice shook the first few times. Little by little, they became a family. But it wasn't perfect. Amina struggled with new routines. She sometimes woke up crying, afraid she was still in the cold bus station where she had been abandoned. Zuri feared people would judge her for raising a child that wasn't hers. Darius feared he would fail his daughter the same way he felt he failed Alana. They were healing, but healing is slow. Healing is messy. Healing is work. Still, every small victory brought them closer. Amina learned how to spell her new last name. Zuri learned to trust that this life would not be taken away, and Darius learned how to love again, a love different from the one he lost, but just as powerful. The city that once mocked Amina now whispered her story with awe. People who once called her trash now saw her as something rare, a child who survived abandonment and rose into a world built to crush her. She was no longer invisible. She was no longer alone. She had a father. She had a mother figure. She had a future born from pain, but rebuilt with love. But even in their happiness, one question stayed in the shadows. Now that Amina was known as the billionaire's heir, what new dangers, what new challenges, what new enemies would come next? Because power attracts eyes, and eyes attract greed. This family's story wasn't ending. It was only beginning. They called her street trash, but destiny called her daughter, and love turned strangers into a family. But if you think this story was unbelievable, wait until you hear the one about the pastor whose darkest secret walked into the church one Sunday morning. Subscribe to Black Journal Stories, where hidden truths, Black excellence, and powerful stories come to life.